the end of last year, I made a video about the most expensive guitar in my collection currently, which was my custom shop Fender Strat. And I thought, why not make more videos about the other guitars in my collection, tell you about the story behind how I first got them, and talk about the specs and any modifications that I may have made to these guitars over the years. And so today, we're going to be talking about my 2012 Gibson Les Paul Standard. Now, I realized the other day that I've now owned this guitar for 10 years. So this is the longest standing member of my guitar collection. I'm going to talk about the story of how I got this guitar and the specs and all that good stuff. And then at the end of the video, yesterday I actually put out on my Instagram story that I wanted you guys to ask questions about this guitar. So we're going to answer some questions that you guys sent me on Instagram towards the end of the video. The story of how I got this guitar. So my dream guitar from a young age, pretty much from when I started playing electric guitar when I was 10 years old, my dream guitar was always a Sunburst Les Paul. And that was 100% fueled by my love for Slash and Guns N' Roses. I still remember watching the Sweet Child of Mine and Paradise City music videos for the first time on the laptops at school in 2005, which I think was when YouTube first started. I remember watching those videos, back in 2005, and just, totally idolizing Slash as a guitar player and just thinking he was the coolest person ever. And a big part of that was were the guitars that he was playing, these Sunburst Les Pauls. So that's what started my love for the Sunburst Les Paul. And then later on, that was, further fueled by players like Joe Bonamassa. So that's when I first got interested in Gibson Les Pauls. I didn't own one until I was 16, and so the story of how I actually got this guitar was my dad, when me and my brother were younger and still in school, he would incentivize us to study hard for our exams. And what that meant for me was, he said to me, when I think I must have been in my 4th or 5th year of high school, he said, okay, if you get an A in your higher music exam this year, then I'll give you X amount of money for you to put towards a new guitar. And so I thought, ooh, it's going to be Les Paul time, finally. If I get my A in higher music, then I'll be able to buy one, finally. And at that time, I was in school, I was working my first part-time job, washing dishes in a kitchen at the local pub. And so I was, studying hard for my exams and then washing dishes at night, and I ended up getting my A in higher music. And I never told my dad this, but it was actually very, very easy to get an A in higher music. Even if you weren't particularly gifted as a musician, it was still quite easy to get that mark. So thank God it wasn't like get an A in higher physics, otherwise I wouldn't be holding this guitar. But anyway, I got my A, and I also managed to save up 500 quid washing dishes at the pub. So I put that towards this guitar, and my dad paid the rest, essentially. So a very fortunate position to be in. My parents have always been very supportive of me pursuing music, and I'm lucky because not everyone has that, of course. So how I found this specific guitar was, we were living in Orkney, which is a group of islands off the north coast of Scotland. Not a lot of guitar shops there, none that stocked Gibson guitars. So I found this on the Guitar website. So there's 2 guitars in Scotland, one in Edinburgh, one in Glasgow. And at the time, they used to photograph the individual Les Paul standards that they had in stock so that you could pick out one with the exact flame maple top that you wanted. Because most Les Pauls are a solid or chambered mahogany body with a flame maple top. So I spotted this one on their website. I noticed it was in stock in the Glasgow store. So I think we phoned up, placed a deposit on the guitar, and then maybe a couple of months later, during the summer holidays, we were able to travel down, visit family and stuff. And then also I was able to go to Glasgow and pick up the guitar. And I remember the day we went to the shop, I tried out this guitar and then also a Les Paul traditional because I wanted to make sure I went home with a guitar that I was happy with. And the traditional was nice. I don't remember it like blowing me away, but my parents laughed when they first opened the case for this guitar, because it was like they opened the lid and then my eyes widened and I was like taken aback by like how beautiful it was. And so yeah, played this after the traditional, and of course left the shop with this guitar that day, and yeah, I was a very, very happy boy. So that's the story of how this came to be in my possession. And I just started playing it again recently because I've been playing my Strat and Telly pretty much exclusively for 4 or 5 years now, and the Les Paul's kind of just been sat in the corner gathering dust, but I needed to use it for some other content we were shooting today. And so I restrung it yesterday and I was playing some old Guns N' Roses stuff, and I was just really enjoying playing the guitar again. I forgot how nice a guitar this actually is. So what it actually is a 2012 Gibson Les Paul Standard. Now, by modern Gibson guitar standards, this was actually a pretty good year spec-wise. It wasn't anything too crazy. As you can see, it's a pretty traditional looking Les Paul, but it did come with some modern features, including the back cavity, well, where the pots are. It didn't have traditional wiring. It originally came with, it was like a sort of printed circuit board thing that they had in the back there, and that was because of the switching options that this guitar came with. So originally it had 2 coil splits, an out of phase switch, and then a switch that allowed you to go straight to the bridge humbucker on 10 no matter what your settings were. So I could have been on like the neck pickup, the volume at 5 and the tone at whatever, flick that switch and then it would go straight to the bridge humbucker on 10. But a few years ago I decided to have that taken out, and I got the wiring replaced with just traditional 50s wiring, so it looks all normal in the back cavity now. I kept the coil splits, but I ditched the out of phase and the thing that goes straight to the bridge humbucker because I just never used them. And to be honest, I never used the coil splits either. I guess they are useful for certain situations, but I've never been a fan of the coil split humbucker sound. And in terms of other modifications that I've made to this guitar over the years, not a lot really. I should say that it originally came with Grover locking tuners, which was a nice, modern spec that, this guitar came with these locking tuners, because the Grovers, like from the front, they look traditional. They've got the kidney bean shape. Yeah, locking tuners, they don't really take anything away from that traditional aesthetic, and it just makes it a lot easier to restring the guitar. The pickups are the same. I believe these are Burst Bucker 2s. So the original pickups that came with the guitar. I know people are going to be asking about the pickups, and you will notice that I've got a black nut. Now this is a Graphtec nut, which I had installed a few years ago by the same guy that did the wiring, because this does help with tuning stability. There's a lot less friction between the string and the nut when you have a Graphtec nut. So you never, when you're tuning up this guitar, you never hear any like pings. And if you hear that on a normal guitar with like a bone nut, that's the string getting caught in the nut and then sliding out. That doesn't happen with a Graphtec nut. So I'm glad I had this installed. And some of you may have noticed that I removed the String Butler that I used to have on this guitar. I took that off yesterday just to see like if not having it on would make a substantial difference to the tuning stability. So far I can't really tell. I'm not sure if the String Butler ever really made a huge difference to the tuning stability. I feel like it did initially, but I don't know. I don't know if it made enough of a difference for me to care about having it on the headstock all the time. It might go back on, but I will say that I did I guess I just missed the traditional aesthetic of the unaltered Gibson headstock the way it is. And that's all that I've really had done to this guitar. It was just the nut, the string butler, replaced the wiring with the 50s wiring, kept the coil splits, and yeah, that's about it. I've not really changed anything else. And because I've had this for 10 years now, this is like one of the few guitars in my collection that actually has a decent amount of like natural wear and tear on it. So if we get a close-up of like the headstock, I don't know if you can see, but there's quite a few dings and scrapes and chips. We've got more wear and tear on the back. Don't really know how that happened. Almost got some buckle rash here. I don't know if you can see that in the light, but it's not quite chipped away the paint just yet. And yeah, some more chips and stuff on the corners of the body. And myself and John, my cameraman, we were talking about this earlier, but you'll notice that this part here has sort of faded in color. So this curve used to be like as cherry red as that color there, but now it's sort of faded to a nice light orange, which is pretty cool. Not sure why that happens, maybe just because that's where your forearm rests on the guitar, or if it's to do with, you know, exposure to sunlight, which I don't know, doesn't sound likely because this guitar has only ever been in Scotland. But yeah, I like how that's just sort of naturally faded away. And that's the cool thing about guitars with nitro cellulose finishes, is that when they chip and wear away, they just look cool. It doesn't look bad. Like the wear and tear that you get on nitro finished guitars just always looks aesthetically pleasing. It's not started checking just yet. I think maybe another 20 to 30 years before that starts happening. But yeah. So now let's take a look at Instagram and see what kind of questions you guys have asked me. I suspect a lot of them will be asking about the pickups. So let me just count how many pickup questions we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's actually not too bad. 5 questions about the pickups. As I said, Burst Bucker 2s, the original pickups that came with the guitar. I haven't changed them. Don't really have any desire to because they sound really nice. Stock Gibson pickups are great in my experience. How often do you use it? Well, as I was saying, I haven't used it that much at all in the past 5 years. Maybe done a couple of gigs with it here and there, but mostly I've been a Strat and Telly player. I've leaned towards my Fender guitars more than anything. But after having spent a lot of time with the guitar again today and the day before, I think I'm going to be picking up the Les Paul a lot more in the future, because I forgot how nice a guitar this actually is. Do you like the heaviness? Not really, no. I mean, this is a chambered Gibson, so, which if you don't know, that means that like you can't see obviously, but inside this mahogany body they've routed out chunks of the woods to alleviate some of the weight, because Les Pauls are known for being overly heavy electric guitars. It's still quite a heavy guitar. I don't know how much it weighs exactly, but I have used it on some 4-hour wedding gigs, and if I play those gigs with like a Strat or a Telly, I never notice the weight of the guitar as the gig goes on, even towards the end. But with this, you do feel it a bit. How often do you have to tune it? I mean, pretty often. It is, you know, with headstocks like this, where the strings pass through the nut at that angle, you're always going to have to, you know, make little adjustments to your tuning, but the Graphtec nut definitely helps. So yeah, as often as you need to retune a Gibson, really. What is meant by VOS and AAA? Really confusing. Well, VOS stands for Vintage Original Spec, but that's nothing to do with this guitar. That's what they used to call the custom shop, like R9 and R8 Les Pauls, like the reissues of 58 and 59 Les Pauls. Vintage Original Spec was what they called those guitars, because they were true to the original spec of guitars built in the late 50s and early 60s. And AAA means like AAA grade flame maple. I don't know if this is AAA. I'm not too sure, but it looks, you know, nice enough to me. One thing you would change about the LP. Don't know if you mean about this guitar or just like Les Pauls in general, but I actually really like the idea of the Les Paul Access, which they make, which is like, some of them have Floyd Roses, but a lot of them have these neck carves so that you don't have this big chunk in your way when you're soloing high up the fretboard. It would be nice to just have a smooth neck carve there. I have a USA Lightburst Standard. It's my number one. Would you ever own an R8, R9, or R0? So meaning like the late 50s or 60s reissues built by the custom shop. Yeah, I would absolutely love to own a custom shop Les Paul one day. I don't know if that'll be anytime soon because they are so expensive right now. I mean, I had a look recently and it's crazy how much those guitars go for, but you know, if I had the cash, I would absolutely go for it because they do play really great and they sound amazing. What year is it? 2012. What are your best tips for a good clean tone? Always struggle with sparkle on an LP. Les Pauls are very low-end heavy guitars in terms of the frequency you get from them, so I would dial back the bass on your amp or your modeler, whatever you're using, as much as you can. Push the mids and the highs to get more of that sort of high-end sparkle in your tone. Favorite position and volume and tone knob levels? I don't know, probably the neck pickup with the tone, like not all the way down, but like maybe set to 3 so you get that sort of slash November Rain, Knocking on Heaven's Door, creamy lead sound. I'm a big fan of that. May I please have this guitar? No, it's a keeper. How often do you reach for it over your Fenders? Not often, but I think that's going to change, like I've already said. Why do they sound like shit a half step down? I don't think they do. It depends on what you're playing. I will say a Strat sounds better in E flat than a Les Paul sounds in E flat, and I think that's probably to do with the scale length. Les Pauls have a shorter scale length. It's 24 3/4 inches, whereas Strats have 25 1/2 inches. Yeah, you know, there's less tension in the strings when you're down tuning on Les Pauls. So yeah, I don't know. I was playing a lot of Guns N' Roses and Slash stuff yesterday, and I like the way it sounds in E flat, but each their own. How often do you polish the frets? Never. This is a 10-year-old guitar and it's in dire need of new frets, I would say. So yeah, I think that would get me playing this guitar a lot more often if I took it to a tech and just had them replace the frets and give it a proper setup and get it playing really nice again. Pickups, fret size, neck shape. Not sure about the fret size, but the neck shape is it's called a 60s slim taper, I think. So it's like a bit thicker and rounder on the left side where your thumb would be, and then a bit slimmer on the underside, so it's asymmetrical essentially. How does an LP differ from some other humbucker guitars like a D'Angelico? Well, the D'Angelicos that I own are both semi-hollow, sort of 339, 335 style guitars, but comparing the sound of a Les Paul to another humbucker equipped solid body, Les Pauls do have their own unique sound, and I think that is to do with the construction of the guitar, the fact that it's built mostly from mahogany, and you know, the way that the bridge is set up. So you've got the Tune-O-Matic bridge with the stop bar tailpiece. It's a very resonant guitar. I don't know if the fact that the body is chambered has anything to do with that, but they feel very resonant. I think as well with the scale length on a Les Paul, that makes a big difference. Yeah, I think if you were to compare Les Paul to another humbucker equipped solid body that had a longer scale length, you would notice the difference in tone. Who is your favorite Les Paul player? I love Clapton. Yeah, I love Clapton's sound on a Les Paul as well. My personal favorite will always be Slash, but Joe Bonamassa is a close second. And last question, why do you not top wrap the strings? Okay, so if you don't know, top wrapping is when you have a guitar with a Tune-O-Matic bridge and a stop bar tailpiece. Instead of putting in the strings this way, you'd put them in this way and then wrap them over the top of that stop bar tailpiece so they come over. And that eases some tension on the strings basically. It will make like 11s feel like 10.5s, 10s feel like 9.5s, for example. I've done it before. It didn't make enough difference for me to want to keep doing it, and I actually like a bit of fight with my guitars. I don't want them to be too easy to play, if that makes sense. I like a bit of resistance and tension. So yeah, that's why I don't top rat them. I just don't really have any reason to. So that's all the questions we had on Instagram, and yeah, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about my Les Paul Standard, and if you want me to make more videos about the other guitars in my collection, then feel free to let me know with a comment. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.